Welcome to this month's episode of Relaunch My Life Radio, or perhaps I should say this quarter's episode, because I just went back through my records and the last time I released a podcast was all the way back in April, and I had no idea it had been that long. It's really been a full time for me, and I'm excited to share some updates using the Dream Life Diary format in my podcast. In the dream section, I provide an update from my life and some of the lessons that I've been learning recently. In the life section, I share with you a mindset tool or a tip to help you in your life. And in my diary section, I give you some simple journaling tips for the month ahead to help direct your thinking and support you in your journey. Now, this episode is titled, What Happens When Life Doesn't Go to Plan? And in the dream section, I want to share a little bit of an update because the last time I recorded a podcast, I let you all know that I had the most amazing trip planned with my mum to Fiji. And I actually started writing the outline for this podcast on the very last morning of my journey to Fiji. And on that final morning in Fiji, my mother and I got up at sunrise to watch the sunrise together. And we actually sang some medicine songs together before enjoying a buffet breakfast overlooking the pool. And it was the perfect ending to the most amazing 12 days together in Fiji. Now, I'm not sure about you, but when I pack for an overseas holiday, one of the things I always tend to do is bring one physical book. Usually, when I'm in the process of packing, one will pop its head up and ask me to take it. And the book that nudged me to be brought along to Fiji on this trip where I was doing volunteer work with kids, with my mum, a very healing journey in terms of healing my mother wound, all of those sorts of things, was a book that I had been avoiding. It was a book that I shared recently on my social media that I actually never wanted to have to read because I bought it almost 2 years ago. And even owning this book was uncomfortable to me because now, being 5 years down the track of infertility, I'm finally moving into the acceptance stage of the stages of grief. I'm shifting out of denial, I'm shifting out of anger, shifting out of bargaining. And the book that I decided to bring with me was called Living the Life Unexpected. And it's a book by Jodie Day, who has founded Gateway Women. And the book is about how to live a fulfilling life without children. I know that it was quite confronting for my mother for me to be reading this book because it's not something that she ever wanted me to go through. I think for any parent, you don't want your children to go through hard things, but that's the reality of living in a life, in a soul, in this lifetime, is we're going to have challenges in our life. And it was actually really special and an important part of my healing journey, reading this book with my mother and sharing sections of the book with her and helping her to learn more about what it actually feels like to be childless, not by choice, which is something my mother, who has been a mother since she was 21, has never had to face. So it really gave us a space to communicate and connect in a new way, her learning more about my experience, and for me, feeling less alone as I read the stories of women who, for some reason or another, have found themselves not being mothers in this lifetime. And in fact, statistics show that 1 in 5 people over the age of 45 are going to find themselves without children, either by choice or by circumstance. And this is 20% of the population. So I find it surprising that it's something that I still feel quite alone with and misunderstood, or that people make the assumption that because I don't have children, it's because I don't want them. So, if you know someone who is childless not by choice, one of the first things people generally ask is if they have children. It's a way of building rapport. And again, when people say no, people naturally assume it's because they don't want them. And this is a really interesting thing because I hadn't considered even some of the societally accepted perspectives that we have on people who go through what we call empty nester syndrome after their children have grown up. People who find themselves being childless not by choice are going through empty nester syndrome without ever having a full nest as well. And so, can I tell you, it has been one of the most deeply confronting, soul searching, dark night of the soul experiences for me to go through. And all while, watching my friends and family fall pregnant and raise children and have that sense of connection with one another. I can remember running one of my writing retreats, and there was a circle of some of the guests at the writing retreat, and they were all sharing their childbirth stories with each other. And I just felt like I stood out like a sore thumb. And I so desperately wanted to be in that conversation, but I didn't have anything in that moment that I could really share aside from listening. And so I just think no matter what people are going through, it's so important to think about how we don't know what people are going through and to have compassion for others and the journeys that they're on. And one of the things that has been really beautiful as well is opening up my heart for more beauty and joy than I ever could have imagined. Like, for example, the volunteering with the children. And over in Fiji, what a beautiful and fun experience that was. My mother and I were assigned to a childcare program initially, and we were with a preschool with 4-year-old local children. But the first morning we turned up at the school, the beautiful preschool teacher, she looked pretty tired. She basically just handed the reins over to us for the class for 3 hours. And we sort of looked at each other, my mother and I, saying help in our eyes as we on the spot came up with games, spelling activities, and read stories to the class. Now, I can't actually share any of the images or pictures of the class or children due to privacy, but the pictures that I do have are so heartwarming. And I really felt my heart crack open a little more every single day as I was reminded on this journey that all children of this earth are my children. And that has been a real common theme that has come through in this healing experience. And you might be getting sick of me sharing about this, but this has been a profound journey for me over the last 5 years. It has been a huge identity crisis. It has been a huge soul searching journey. And I think I like to always share open heartedly. And I know that there were times when I had my podcast over the last 5 years where I felt like I didn't know what to share because I am a really big believer in sharing from the scar, not the wound. And this has been a wound that it's taken a long time to heal, and I'm still in the process of healing it. And so my truth has been about finding how do I articulate what I'm navigating with a clean ability to articulate it that isn't just me, dumping all of my stuff in this podcast, which is not what I intend it to be. I intend for this podcast to be a place where you can feel uplifted and inspired, but also a place where it's real, where you feel like you're able to get insights, because I know that you're going through your own soul journey right now. You're going through your own challenges. And I trust that there could be some mirrors and some patterns for you in what you could take strength from when I'm sharing this. And I think this is what I've really tried to do. As much as this has been really challenging, I've tried to go into this journey as consciously as possible. I've sought help. I've tried, self-reflecting, and I've looked at so many different angles on this. And sometimes the part of the journey I've been in has been, this is really challenging. This is really taking everything I have right now. And this is really, which I think all soul facing journeys take us on, this is really requiring me to find deeper levels of love for myself and trust for the bigger picture than I ever have had to before. So I really loved the time in Fiji. My gosh, my mum and I were exhausted every day. Mum was having naps in the afternoon after volunteering, and I was doing some work and writing by the pool in the afternoons. But it was a beautiful experience, and one that I will always be grateful for sharing with my mum. And when I came home, I had literally one day to unpack my bags. And then I was off to Tanunda and the north of Adelaide for a 3-day writing masterclass with the amazing Fiona McIntosh, who is a fiction writer, multi-bestseller fiction writer. And in this masterclass, she set me the challenge of writing a draft of my first ever fiction novel over the next 12 months. And this is challenging me so deeply. It is such a different skill set to my usual work of helping people write self-help books or memoirs, but I am truly loving the growth that's coming from this process. And it's given me an even bigger well to draw from for my September writers retreat, of which I still have 2 places left for. So if you have been wanting 3 nights away to be fully nourished and held and fed and supported by me and other writers, if you've got a writing project that is bubbling away and you maybe just need some space and time and an enriching environment to let that marinate, then please reach out to me. Head to my website, julietlever.com, to find out more details about my annual writers retreat. And it is something that I run towards the end of winter. It's the real time of us coming out of our cocoon. And I think it's a beautiful time for being able to share that creativity when spring is about to come. So I only do run it once a year, and I would love to have you there if it's speaking to you. Now, last week, Paul wrapped up teaching our last hypnotherapy training, and we're currently in the process of preparing for our Masters of NLP training, which is starting next month. So honestly, one of the highlights has been the fact that a colleague that I used to work with over 12 years ago now. So I was the national sales manager for a finance company, and she was the Queensland state manager. So we worked really closely together for several years. She's now studying with Evolve and Relaunch, and it has been so beautiful to witness her transformation through NLP practitioner, now hypnotherapy practitioner last week, and now she's stepping into master practitioner. And I really feel grateful that the right people find our work. And it's something that she's been thinking about doing for about 10 years, ever since I left my corporate job. And now she's here. And it's just so cool to see her evolution and the ripple effect of how many people she's now helping with the skills. So my life really is full and rich. And there was also one other funny thing that happened last month while I'm updating on the life section. On the dream section, before I get into the life section, is Paul and I had a little funny moment where our love story was actually featured in Take 5 magazine in May. When they interviewed us, I thought to myself, oh, not many people read Take 5 magazine, but in fact, apparently it has the largest readership of any magazine in Australia. I didn't realize it's like 1.5 million people read it, something amazing like that. And they actually wrote a really beautiful write-up of our love story and how Paul and I met. And so, of course, I have been inundated on my Facebook and my Instagram with inquiries, and even my website, with inquiries from people who've read the article and they desperately wanted to know the name of my psychic that told me I was going to meet a man called Paul. And her name is Alison Maiden, if you have been looking at that or you're interested in that. And believe it or not, Paul and I actually decided when the article ran, we thought, do you know what? It's been 11 years nearly. Let's book another session with Alison. So tomorrow, Paul and I have a reading booked with her. And as I wrote in my book, I do believe we can be our own psychics, but oh gosh, we've been through a lot together in the last 10, nearly 11 years. So it's also a little fun to get some outside guidance from time to time too. So I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with the woman that I have to thank for leading me to Paul. Now let's move on to the life section. And in this section, in the life section, based on the themes that I've been talking about, I really want to have an open conversation about expectations. And I want to remind you that expectations can cause you all sorts of trouble, because one of the things that we can do is we can distort our reality. And it's a useful tool. Distorting your reality allows you to press pause on what you're experiencing right now and dream about the future. Distort reality to fantasize about what your future would be like and set goals. But a recipe for creating depression, a recipe for creating a life where you don't feel happy, is when the fantasy of your life doesn't match the reality of your life. So, for example, if you had a dream for your life and that doesn't match the experience you're having right now. Now, this is really difficult because we are faced with the dreams and the fantasies of everyone else's lives on social media and even in famous people's lives. And it's really easy to compare other people's highlight reels to your 24/7, because our minds can be incredible storytellers. They imagine futures, they build dreams, they shape our goals. But when the fantasy of your life doesn't match the reality you're living, you can feel a little disheartened or like something's not right. So one of the simplest things that you can start to do is challenge your beliefs and the stories that you tell yourself, and to find more peace and contentment in the present moment. Because having those expectations, and I think this is a fine line where you want to have goals and you want to have dreams, but not at the detriment of your reality, not at the detriment of being grateful, deeply, profoundly appreciative for what is right now. Because those expectations, they can create a feeling of unrest in the present moment. And it's important to discern, is this practical unrest? Is this something that I actually need to change? Or am I comparing my reality to an illusion, to a fantasy? So let me walk you through a really simple exercise. As long as you're not driving and it's safe for you to do so, I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you are deeply fulfilled. I want you to imagine that you're deeply peaceful and content. And as you imagine that, notice how that feels physically in your body to feel fulfilled, peaceful, and content. Take a few deep breaths and anchor this feeling of fulfillment, peace, and contentment in your body. And as you do that, focus on your heartbeat. Feel grateful for this present moment. Feel the appreciation flow through your body for being alive, for the sun coming up today, for the air that you're breathing, the food you ate, the roof over your head. And consider as you go inside and ask yourself, what would happen if you allowed yourself to feel this peace, fulfillment, contentment, and appreciation even more deeply now? How would that feel? And what would be possible from this place? Know that everything in your reality is responding to your energy, to your frequency. And so if you're putting out this feeling of peace, contentment, fulfillment, appreciation, more and more of that will find you. And if you're finding that you're having persistent negative emotions that are magnetic, or you feel like you can't navigate through, please reach out and ask for help. So when we move into the diary section, I want to invite you to journal about these following 3 questions, and I'll put them in the show notes as well. The first, what is an expectation that you had for your life that hasn't worked out? The second, what is an unuseful story you've been telling yourself about this expectation in your life? So, for example, an expectation I had was that I would be a mother and I would have children. And an unuseful story I had was that if I can't do that, how can I help and lead women? If I can't do the thing that women are meant to be able to do, how can I hold space as a woman? And how can I be a strong female leader? Right? Can you tell a more empowering story? And so, for example, my now more empowering story is, well, I can be a leader for people who recognize that life doesn't always go to plan, but you can still find happiness and fulfillment even when your expectations don't always get met. And so then the last question, what is actually perfect about your life right now that you just haven't realized? And this is one of my all-time favorite reframes. Whenever I'm thinking life should or could be a certain way, I pause, I zoom out, and I think, deep breath. What is actually perfect about this situation that I just haven't realized? And it really helps you to get perspective. So thank you, as always, for joining me on my podcast and on this journey. And if you've been listening since the very beginning, all the way back in 2017, thank you. If you are new to listening, thank you. If you can leave a Spotify or iTunes review, I would deeply appreciate that. If you have a friend who's maybe had some expectations not get met recently, send this podcast to them and hopefully it will give them some light. And please, if someone you know is walking a similar path, maybe someone you know might need to hear the messages in this podcast, please share the love, and if you do share it, tag me on your socials so that I see it. So until next time, stay true to you and your heart and keep relaunching your life. And I'll see you in the next episode.